Don't worry about a deposit. Just bring all the money up next Friday afternoon and the house will be finished.
And now we've got build times of just blowing out. So.
And you know what? This all goes back to the undersupply of land, because when you don't have land, you don't have those new house and land packages being built, the established house market just has to rise.
What do you think's like preventing the land from being released?
Building costs for developers. They got to start asking higher prices.
Yeah.
And I guess they'd be quite nervous of spending a couple of $1 million on a subdivision. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Leon. How are you?
Yeah, real good. Just come back from ARIC, the Australian Real Estate Conference.
Yes.
2024. How good was that?
It was a lot of fun. Yep. Met a lot of people who I have a lot of respect for. A lot of people who have put in a lot of hard work over the years and developed a lot of, really interesting strategies.
Yeah, and look, it comes down to just consistency, doesn't it?
Consistency, and I think the other big takeaway for ARIC was family. Yeah, making sure you know, because what's it all for?
Yeah, get that work balance life happening, and sometimes that's really hard in business because we work such long hours, you know?
Yeah. So
today I wanted to just quickly touch base on some of my land sales. You know, we've got
how's that going?
Oh, mate, really good.
Yep.
We've had the Gowrie estate out at Gowrie Junction for sale. We've sold almost all of those blocks.
2 lots left out of the how many?
3 blocks.
3 blocks, okay.
11, 12 and 14.
Yep.
And I met 2 lots of buyers out there the other afternoon at 5:30 to walk over the blocks. And as a builder, I like to explain to people the building costs, you know, what might blow out in a build contract. And all those little things that they don't think about, you know. Instead of spending a whole heap of money on retaining walls, I said, why don't you just batter the banks? Like, they're such huge banks, and some of these cuts are 3 metres deep, right? So to put a 3 metre retaining wall up and look out your back door into that is not going to be a great design idea.
So for those people who don't know what battering the banks is, me included, what does that look like?
Look, it's just a 1 in 4 batter. So if you go up 4 metres, you come. If you go up a metre, you come out 4 metres. So if you do a 1 in 4 batter, you don't need to do any retaining. On it,
right.
Depending on how steep the block is, of course. And these last 3 blocks have sensational views. So they're up on the side of the mountain. So they are a little bit steep. But the developer cut some pads in for the buyers so they could stand up there. So I could stand there and actually show them the view.
Oh, excellent.
Which was
so,
great
and
idea.
the developer will cut in that pad for those buyers.
They're already there.
They're already there. Great.
So that's what we were standing on the other night. Had a look at the beautiful view, you know, and it's interesting out there. Like, there is the train line that runs from the Ackland coal mine, and it went past as we were standing there, and you couldn't hear it. And I said, look, there goes the train. Like, what you don't want to do when you're selling a block of land, right, is say to somebody, oh, you know, it's so quiet up here, and you stand there at 5:30 and the train goes by and you can hear it. Or an aeroplane goes over. So you need to tell people, you know, there's going to be maybe a train every hour, but you just really couldn't hear it when we were standing up there. So it was quite beautiful to watch the train go past full of coal and see all the lights come on through Charlton, out through Cotswold Hills and those places. And it was very pretty.
I suppose there's four things that go into land value, isn't there, Leon? There's the size. There's the location. Proximity to water. And then finally views.
Absolutely.
So we've got some big blocks out there and they have some nice views.
Oh, sensational. And actually, interesting enough, one of the guys that bought another lot off me down the bottom end of the estate, he said, mate, I've just got my house revalued. He said, I've got about $800,000 worth of equity. And he said, I want to come up and build another one up here. And I said, mate, that sounds like a great idea. And he's a builder and, you know, just a lovely fella to deal with and got a great vision.
With your blocks of land, what are your buyers looking for right now?
You know what? There's such a shortage. They're just looking for a block that's available. And there just hasn't been enough blocks developed in Toowoomba. And I think it's not just Toowoomba. It's right across Queensland. Developers haven't had the incentives to get out there and develop a lot of land. What
do you think's like preventing the land from being released?
Building costs for developers.
You
know, they're so high. They got to start asking higher prices. And I guess they'd be quite nervous of spending a couple of $1 million on a subdivision. And those blocks sitting there. So it's a really tricky time. And, of course, we don't want government to get involved in starting to do land subdivisions like they did back in the 50s and 60s. You know, it's very important that developers, continue to develop land, like Clive Burkhoff of Land Sales in Toowoomba. Clive has just continually developed land for the last 30 years and kept it very affordable for Toowoomba.
Yep, he's the reason thousands and thousands and thousands of people have a home. I remember the story you told me about Burkhoff building your parents' place.
Yeah.
And a case of money literally rocked up at the pub, and he was like, "No worries, mate. I'll have it finished within the next week or so." And sure enough, the house went up within about 7 days.
Yeah. So
Great.
what Dad did, he went up to the Wilson Hotel.
Yep.
He said, "Clive, I'd like you to build me a house." He said, "No worries, Bill." And Dad said, "Well, how much deposit do you want?" And Clive said, "Look, don't worry about a deposit. Just bring all the money up next Friday afternoon, and the house will be finished."
And now we've got build times of just blowing out. It's hard to get trades. And it's not the builder's fault all the time, is it? They're just struggling either to get tilers, painters, plasterers, you name it. There's specific.
Look, it starts with council, right?
Yeah.
So the process that it takes to go through councils, let's say it's a duplex, like, my goodness, like that could take 6 or 12 months.
Yeah.
And when you say to people, "Oh, look, that's great, you bought a block of land, you're going to build a duplex on it," allow 12 months before you start building. Go and get some quotes from some local builders.
Yep.
Don't use Brisbane and Gold Coast builders, because the local builders, they need the work.
Yep.
Their families live here, they go to school here, they know the soil types. It's really important. At the Gold Coast, they build on sand, which is S-type soil. S doesn't mean sand, it means stable.
Yeah.
And then you got M for moderate.
Yes.
And then P for problem sites.
Yes.
Etc.
Yeah.
So when you're building on P and let's say E-type, extremely reactive soil types,
Yes.
you need to really understand the soil that you're building in.
Yep.
And I don't believe that the Brisbane and Gold Coast builders really understand that fully.
Right.
So it's very important, because we've had some of those builders who now have gone broke, unfortunately, have come up, built an awful lot of houses up here, especially in Wairima, Kambooya area on the thick black soil.
Yes.
And those slabs have all started to crack. And it was because they were designed by engineers at the Gold Coast
Who just weren't used to the soil
who just
type.
weren't used to how expansive our soil types are up here. Yeah.
Wow.
Whereas if you use a local builder, they understand, if you're building on thick black soil, you might need to dig all that black soil out of that site and put rock back in or gravel back into the base, and then top it up with.
Almost do a cut and fill.
And it could be at like a 6 metre deep cut and fill.
Yeah, wow.
And turn the soil right over, put all the black soil on the bottom, and then put the good stuff on top.
And that's like a lot of buyers I'm talking to at the moment. They get very stressed out when they see soil reports, and I guess it's not something to stress out over. It's just something to be educated about more than anything.
Yeah, and that's what we're trying to do.
What
right
are
now.
the solutions? So
absolutely.
Some people just think, nope, can't build there. It's never going to work. I'm never going to build a house that's going to be healthy and happy for many, many, many years. But that's not true. You can. There are ways that you can, I guess, make sure that the house is going to be fine, that's built there correctly, just as long as you've chosen the right builder.
Yeah. So this is the important thing about me meeting some of these buyers out on site. Is I can step them through that process, and if there's already a 3 metre cut there, I can say, well, you can look into that cut, and you can see that it's gravel based. You can see the foot of black soil on top. I said, now that you're 3 metres down on a flat pad, you should get another soil test done, because you're starting
completely
from 3
changed.
metres down.
Yeah.
And if you get rid of all the trees on the site and the neighbours get rid of their trees, that might take it away from being a P site, which is a problem site, to maybe even back to an M type, which is a moderate soil type.
Okay.
And that could save them, look, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in construction costs just with the footings alone.
Yeah. And I'm noticing as well, a lot of buyers are wanting to negotiate on blocks of land. And that's really interesting when you look at those subdivisions, because one thing we want to do is educate them and say, look, we're not actually negotiable on the price of these lands, because this is where they need to sell to hold up the values of every other block of land in the area that's sold. Because if we start negotiating on this block of land, it brings everyone else's values down, and that's just not what we want to do.
Exactly. So it's really important for people to understand that if everyone's paying $300,000 for the block of land, and then the developer starts to discount the last 2 or 3 blocks to $280, then that drops everybody's block back to
Shoots
$280.
everyone in the foot.
Absolutely. So I think maybe that's enough talk about land at the moment,
that's
because
right.
we don't have a lot of it to sell. But
No.
Tell me about your last recent house that you've sold, maybe last weekend or...
So we had 11 Clairmont Street, beautiful little character home.
Clairmont Street's over in Newtown?
Yes, over in Newtown. Great little spot. Over 100 years old easily, this home. Had a lot of love and care put into it. Owner had bought it in 2003, put a renovation through it around that time, and then basically just spent his entire 20 years since just taking care of the place really well.
Lovely.
We put a marketing package together that was suitable for him and what he needed really. And then,
so did you sell that on market or off market?
On market. My advice is to always go on market at the moment, especially if the house is in that affordable housing range. At the moment, we've just got, after Clairmont Street, I've got 88 buyers.
So how many people did you have turn up on the? Was it Saturday? You did the open house on a Saturday?
I like to do as many open homes as possible as soon as we launch a listing, because we've got the momentum there. It's fresh, it's new.
Yep.
So I did a Friday afternoon. We launched on the Thursday. I did a Friday afternoon, and I did a Saturday morning.
So how many came through Friday afternoon?
We had 23 come through on Friday.
23 groups of people.
Yep. And then we had 30 on Saturday for a total of 53 groups.
And where was that marketed? Where could people see that?
We had it across Domain,
yes,
realestate.com,
yep,
all of our social media, and we also ran a social media campaign which basically tested everyone's algorithms. Whoever's searching for houses in that area, whoever has a budget in the mid 500 range, that would pop up on their Instagram, on their Facebook, right in front of them as a sponsored post.
Yep.
Okay, so we had it within the first 48 hours. We had it show up in 25,000 searches.
Wow.
With 2,500 people actually viewing the listing.
And that's a property in Clairmont Street in Newtown in Toowoomba.
Just a really.
And what was the outcome of having that many people?
Yeah, really modest home, beautiful spot, beautiful location, beautiful big bottle tree out in the back. And we took a total of 15 offers on the property over the weekend. And we have it under contract currently right now in the low 600s.
So, Aaron, just so I'm clear, you had 15 offers on the property. You weren't directing where those offers went to?
Nope.
So they just all came in on their own validation. So
the instructions we give buyers in that situation when it comes down to a multiple offer is just make it your best and final.
Yep.
And it's not an auction.
Yep.
So we just whatever you're comfortable with offering for the property, whatever you feel the property is worth in that multiple offer situation, tick the little box to understand that it is your best and final, and then we take them all off.
Yeah. And the owner doesn't have to accept any of those.
No, it doesn't.
But in this instance, it was just a sensational offer over 600.
Yes.
But the trouble with that is you've got 14 groups of buyers now that are probably a little bit cranky with you. So what do you do then to try and find them something?
I look. I look very hard. I work with a lot of owners and I make sure that I keep a database. I like to specialise in character homes, Leon, especially in Newtown, East Toowoomba, there's certain pockets around our office in East Toowoomba as well, because now that I have those 14 buyers who are incredibly disappointed, I know a lot of owners who have character homes very similar to 11 Clairmont Street that I know would potentially consider selling or are seriously considering selling. So I then, if we've got everything ready to go, it's just a matter of talking to those buyers and saying, look, I'm so sorry that you missed out on 11 Clairmont Street. Could you go and have a drive past this address?
Yep.
And let me know what you're thinking if you'd like a private inspection.
So would you then class that as you're looking for those buyers for an off-market property?
Yeah, sometimes. Other times, if we've got something just about to hit the market, so a pre-market property, if we're just waiting on the photographer to get some photos back to us, sometimes I like to give them an early heads up just before the house hits the market.
Yep. But it's not only those 14 groups of buyers, and they're groups of buyers, they're not just 14 people. There's also all the other people that came through the property that probably didn't put an offer in, and some people do take a couple of days, a week, and they ring you back and then they get really cranky with you and you say, oh no, I'm sorry, we had 15 offers on that property and we have sold it and it was in excess of 600. And they go, but Aaron, you marketed that property at interest over
525.
Do you feel like you've misled them? How do you come to that interest over 525 number?
When we do the interest over campaigns, I always like to look at the data of how they've performed. So when I'm speaking with my clients on how to sell their property, it can be a very scary thing because my client for 11 Clairmont had a number in his mind that he really wanted to achieve, and it was a scary thing for him to put 525, the number.
Because he thought that was low?
Very low.
Yep. And in my experience, I found the lower you start, the higher the price seems to end up. Just in this market. Not my 28 years experience of being a real estate agent. It's just been in this market.
Yeah. I think there's still the saying of price too high You won't get enough buyers. Price too low and they'll think something's wrong with it is still very apparent. I just had a conversation on the phone this morning with a buyer that said, Aaron, there's this house in Newtown for sale for $426,000. And my instant thing the instant thing that I said to them, it wasn't one of our listings. I said, oh, what's wrong with it? Just instantly that just came out of me because as soon as you see a house that's priced that low, you think there's something wrong with it.
Yeah, and I think that's just a normal buyer reaction.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess really the market is still really strong in that sort of
Very
mid
strong.
500s.
Yeah.
I guess.
There's the new, like we used to have the saying that, there's the $350,000, $400,000 house. Well, 550 is now the new 400,000. Really,
and that's really jumped only in months, hasn't it?
Massively. We're seeing growth on property over a single month at the moment. We sold a property recently in East Toowoomba that the owner had only held for a year and a half. He'd purchased for $515,000, and I was able to sell that one for him for $660,000, and he'd held that property for 13 months. Which is just crazy growth.
It is,
It's
and I guess
over $10,000 a month.
Yeah. And I guess the next thing is if you're buying that as an investment property, you got to pay capital gains tax on it. But if you actually buy it as an owner-occupier and you live in it, you don't have to pay that capital gains, which is a huge benefit.
Massive benefit, exactly. And one thing we are noticing at the moment is some of our property investors that we look after, some of our clients now are considering actually moving into a house and living in it for a certain period of time that they then have it count as their owner-occupier before they sell it, which is a very interesting strategy, I think, and something you should definitely talk to a financial professional and advisor about. But it's happening. People are doing that. So.
And you know what? This all goes back to the undersupply of land.
Exactly.
Because when you don't have land, you don't have those new house and land packages being built, or just people moving out of an established house into a new home. The established house market just has to rise. And when that rises, right, that then starts to rise rents. And you just got to feel sorry for poor old tenants who, every time we get a renewal, it could be up to another $100,000 worth of value that's been added to that property over the last 12 months. And the tenant's going, I don't want to have to pay that extra rent. We're talking to builders at the moment as well, and they're bringing up that the government claims it wants to build more houses, yet we're bringing in NDIS ratings for houses that they must be like compulsory built to a certain standard. And builders are telling me this is adding somewhere between another 20 and 30 grand to the build price of a property, and the 7-star power rating on houses too is adding to the price again. So when you bring all of these, red tape in for builds on houses, it makes them more expensive. Less people can afford to build them. That means less supply. And then it'd be interesting to see how aesthetically pleasing it's going to be with a ramp up to the front door of every property.
Like a Queenslander.
You've really got to think that through.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes government policy is good intended, but poorly executed.
Yes, and I'd have to agree, because I believe I was talking to someone who was talking about even houses on stumps. If they're above 900, you don't need to have the ramp in, but the rest of the inside of the house still has to comply to accommodate a wheelchair with extra wide doorways. That just doesn't make sense. If the wheelchair can't
get in,
why are we still trying to be compliant? So,
and look, as a builder, I don't mind going in retrofitting houses for whether it's a wheelchair accessibility or whether it's to do with other types of disability. Like there's tons of different. You've worked in the disability
I came
industry.
from an NDIS background.
So all the different types of disabilities there are. So
and needs people have.
It's not just about having a ramp to the front door.
No.
But I tell you what, it's aesthetically not pleasing. In a lot of instances.
Yes.
I think maybe government need to have a bit of a think about that.
Look at it,
Wouldn't it be lovely if they started to cut back some of the red tape so the builders could just get out there and do what
and get stuck in? Exactly.
Because I know as a builder, my concrete price went up last month, my steel price went up last month. It's just, and to do a fixed price contract on a house is really scary for a builder, because you either got to load it and hope that the bit that you've loaded it by covers all those extra expenses. And then you've got to hope that, all the trades turn up, because all the trades are stretched and they're really exhausted, a lot of people in
Yes.
the building industry, you know?
And that's the thing as well. A lot of people sort of, view all the rising building costs and they think all these builders are greasing the wheels. That's just not the case at all.
This is when we go broke in good times, because we've got so much work and the costs get away from us.
Yes.
And you can't finish the project
Exactly.
in time. And then next minute, you might have been a builder for 20 or 30 years and you've gone broke in the best times ever.
Exactly.
So, and that's really sad. It's not good to see good builders go broke.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it doesn't do well for anyone, you know?
Yeah.
Because then you get people on Current Affairs saying, my builder didn't complete the project and, we're left out in the lurch, we're still renting, we're paying rent, we're paying the house off because we've made progress payments. So they might have the roof stage or the lock-up stage and they can't finish it. And interesting enough, I went and had a look at a house over in Newtown that was in that instance, right? It was lock-up stage, ready for painting, and the builder went broke. And you just think, oh, that poor lady now is going to go through probably 2 years worth of grief, and she probably won't even have a house ready in 2 years. For us to rent out for her.
Yeah, I remember that one. Was that the one that flooded?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, and she'll be going through QBCC, and it'll just be a nightmare.
And you feel in your heart how sad that must be for her, and she's still continuing to pay repayments on all of her loans for that.
Yeah.
So I think the message is, if we can develop a little bit more land, get it to the market, get rid of some red tape.
Yep. Get the houses built, get them done. And on that, it's not just the affordable houses that we're still seeing do really well. We had that one out at Gowrie Junction recently. It was a pretty scary thing to do for that owner to do the interest over campaign of $899,000. They sort of had it in their heart that they really wanted. They had a number of 950, and then we were able to draw so much inquiry and get it sold for $1 million cash, which is once again that rule of thumb, shooting for 10% above the actual price that you put on there, which is very interesting to see. So,
Well, mate, it's been great talking to you. Thanks very much.
No worries.